Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to House of Footy. We are back again with a full house today. Your host here is Ray, and alongside me is Gio
Yo, 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 what's good, guys?
and Mac.
Good evening.
And on today's podcast, we're going to be looking at the eight groups for the 2022 Qatar World Cup, and we'll be giving you our thoughts on those teams. As well, we're going to be giving you our live House of Footy World Cup 2022 bracket at the end of the podcast. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at House of underscore Footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. In addition, this pod is going to be uploaded and be part of the first House of Footy YouTube videos coming your way. So please, if you can, subscribe, like, and comment on that platform as well. But now the good. So we're gonna be giving you a rundown of two groups at a time, and then we'll take a break and then give you the remaining groups and so forth. So first, we're gonna go straight into Group A, which is made up of Qatar, Senegal, Ecuador, and the Netherlands. And just before I give it off to Gio to give us some of his overall thoughts, just wanted to read how each team qualified for the World Cup this year. Qatar, obviously the hosts. Senegal did qualify by beating Egypt on penalties after their two-leg tie. Um, Ecuador finished fourth in the South American qualifications group, and the Netherlands finished top of the group in Group G in Europe. So, Gio, give us some of your overall thoughts on this group.
Um, I think for most people, they look at this group and they think, the Netherlands have a pretty easy group, obviously, and Ecuador, who I wouldn't say are powerhouses by any means, but I don't think you can really count out Senegal. Granted, they did lose their most, prized possession, that being Sadio Mane, but they still have Edward Mendy, who again, who is a keeper we we know and we've watched play for Chelsea, who can keep your team in a game. So, and with that being said, Senegal, from what I believe, they're one of the taller teams in that group, and where I see them benefiting, apart from their athleticism, is their height and where they can really compete for set pieces and corners into corners into the box. Those areas, I think, just with pace, apart from pace, I think those are the areas that they can benefit, and they can definitely compete for, if not top spot, at least second spot to make it out of the group here, and quite comfortably at that.
Oh, I'd have to agree. I would think Netherlands we kind of have them shoe in to go through, and then it's really a toss up between Senegal and Ecuador. More so even now, like you mentioned, Sadio Mane will be missing out. But I think looking at the squad that Senegal have, they still have a pretty decent squad overall, and should be favorites to finish second in that group. What do you think, Mac?
I overall this group I'm going to dub it as a snooze fest because if I'm trying to take a break throughout the World Cup games, I'm comfortable. It's like you know what? Do I need to watch Ecuador versus Qatar? Probably not. Right? That's not going to be kind of my main focus, and that's very traditionally, especially when it's held in host countries like this, where it's not driving as much of I guess the attention, unless the kind of it doesn't initially have a strong host team traditionally with Qatar, I think being the third lowest ranked team entering the World Cup, being 50th. It's not going to create a lot of tension or kind of an excitement within the group. There are still some key talking points, definitely for sure. But I would be surprised if we're getting kind of maybe a large competition or a deep run. I know, Ray, you had Netherlands as your potential dark horse team, but if that's the best the group can offer, it's still kind of a tough outlook, in my opinion. Especially uh, taking away some of the excitement, of course, as you both brought up with Mane being out. Um, it'll be very interesting for me, and I think the matchup will come out between Senegal and Ecuador. I think right now, like Ecuador is 6-1 to win the group, and Senegal's 5-1 to win the group. So they're in essence really tied in terms of favorites to kind of win out or even to qualify. So I wouldn't be. I think that's where most of the conversation should lie, where Netherlands are heavy favorites to finish first, and Qatar really, other than probably bribing their way through. Let's be real here. If anyone saw those reports for, I guess, the Ecuadorian players potentially being bribed to lose the first game, that I think that's the matchup that we're going to talk about a lot about. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those obviously the it's up to basically Senegal and Ecuador to see who makes it through. One thing I'm interested in seeing is, and I know Gio, you had eyes on this. For in terms of the Netherlands team, they have obviously seasoned veterans coming on, and you have the likes of um, Xavi Simmons, who is getting his first call up, and I'm interested actually to see how him, Cody Gakpo, even players like even Matthias de Ligt, who hasn't had previous to this year, didn't have the best club form, seeing how they can perform in some of the games where they will have less pressure on them, and see if they can integrate themselves to be part of like that new Dutch team that will carry on the tradition of those traditional Dutch teams that always put a good performance in the world stages, and see if they can be that new blood for their country, and see how they do. Any specific players stand out to you guys? I guess out of these teams.
I think I would to be able to jump in there.
Sorry, go ahead.
To be able to jump in there on that, it'll be interesting to see the front three that they do utilize because
Yeah.
Xavi Simmons has been playing as a kind of a false nine striker, alongside Cody Gakpo in the respective domestic teams in PSV. But Xavi Simmons traditionally prior to then was playing more as a kind of a midfielder. So does he start kind of as a false nine striker with Depay and Cody Gakpo on either side? To serve Steven Bergwijn, who's been in hot form. Does he be able to get minutes up top instead? It'll be interesting to see that front three there. As well as on the other side of the pitch, with Van Dijk missing out on the Euros last round due to injury. So he wasn't available then. So this one now be his, guess, I don't, if I recall correctly, in the last World Cup, that was just towards the beginning of his time at Liverpool, where maybe he wasn't cemented as one of the best center backs in the world. So this might be a tournament for him to really be able to stand out as well. And of course, missing the Euro. So I think they have Netherlands as a team has a lot of interesting questions or key players that are looking to really show out. But for me, I think the conversation does start with that front three, because they've generally played a 5-2-3 in qualification. So I'll be curious to see what they do there. What do you think, Gio? Do you have a preference in terms of how they would structure their attack going into the tournament? Your former manager Louis van Gaal, of course, is in charge.
Honestly, I'm worried how, especially in the midfield. I'm just curious on like how they're really gonna be able to move the ball as well as they think they're gonna move the ball. I just don't think they necessarily have the experience there just yet. Obviously, we know what Frankie De Jong's able to do, but apart from say, Frankie De Jong, maybe Cody Gakpo, and again, Xavi Simons, you know, the depth and like the quality in terms of, again, I bank a lot of World Cup success on a lot of veterans and being able to being able to play in the moment. A lot of this can be overwhelming because they are such a young team. So I think the striker, it's getting to ball to your front three. It doesn't to me, it doesn't matter who they line up in the front three. I think they have pace at the front three, in the front three position, but it's how they're gonna get work the ball because teams of the past in terms of the Dutch side, they've had a lot of pacey wingers, especially one notably being Iron Robin, who you know he's he's dominated with his speed and being able to cut in, and having a like a shot on goal, but it just yeah, that just worries me, and it will definitely worry me definitely more when they face Senegal, because I just think overall the general athleticism of Senegal might overwhelm the Dutch, because they are such a more skillful team, but less physical team, apart from their back line, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely something interesting to keep in mind. So definitely we'll be watching those. So let's move on now, guys, to Group B, which is made up of Iran, the USA, England, and Wales. And before I throw it to you, Mac, just wanted to mention Iran, winners of Group A in their group qualifying. The USA finished third in CONCACAF. England finished winners of Group I in UEFA. Mac mentioned here that they were undefeated, so I just wanted to mention that. And Wales were playoff winners through Path A after beating Ukraine 1-0. So, Mac, what are your thoughts on this group?
I think it's very interesting for me when you look at the names. I guess the teams overall, you'll generally feel comfortable with England having a like let's say a breezy group where they should feel comfortable on a lot of those games, and of course are heavy favorites. But they're the only group actually with everyone being ranked within the top 20 of the world. So it is actually deep competitions that they're facing in that manner. However, of course, I still think that we would all agree they are heavy favorites to be able to get out of the group for good reason. Um, just to be able to start off, I guess, in terms of kind of players missing or surprise selections that maybe we've gone through that are for the World Cup. For me personally, I think it's kind of it's shocking to me that Tomori, who plays for AC Milan, didn't make the England squad. He would if I'm manager, he's in my starting center back rotation without question. And he doesn't even get minutes on the pit. He doesn't even get on the plane at all. So that's a little bit
Right.
disappointing there. But then you have a player like Eric Dyer or Harry Maguire who, if the first requirement is current club form, are not having the best minute best time for the respective team. So that I guess is the first thing that draws my ire. But of course, if we were to move past that, England should still have enough to get out of this group. Very very good team. Um, it'll be interesting to see how aggressive they play, or if there's a formation change, because uh, to be able to they generally play kind of a 3-4-3 system. Um, Especially against bigger teams, do they start a little bit more aggressive because they're in a playing against teams that are probably going to be able to sit back and play with the low block? It'll be interesting to see what Southgate does, but if England don't finish first, they I think they would be very disappointed. What about you, Gio? What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. Me personally, I actually have the U.S. edging Wales in this group to finish second. Me
Ooh.
personally, I just think cohesively as a team, they still have a lot to prove. But again, the Wales side also has a lot to prove as well, because year after year they've always been banking on, you know, Gareth Bale to kind of lead the ship, right? And Gareth Bale isn't what Gareth Bale used to be. So who do they lean on now? Of course, they have a couple of notable names. Particular, I do like sorry
Dan
if I
James.
would no 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 no
Okay,
no
okay. I'm
no.
sorry.
I can
I'm sorry.
tell you
I'm
which
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
names. Where is I mean, yeah, definitely not Dan James. Oh, wow. Yeah, like yeah, no, like Ben Davies is on the squad. Like their
Mm.
keepers Wayne Hennessy. They still have Joe Allen, Aaron Ramsey, just to name a few. It's just not a very convincing squad to say that they would outclass the U.S. by that much. And I do again, I love a pacey team, and I think the U.S. up front they do have a very pacey team, as we have seen with Leeds. So yeah, I think England should feel quite comfortable. If they should, I think this England side should go in with with less pressure. You know, they should know that they are top dogs in this group, and they should go out and take care of business. The squad is quite deep. I'm actually shocked that James Madison made the team.
Mm.
Um, but he he made a fair shout for himself. Just what he's producing offensively for Leicester. But again, I would agree with Mac. Tamori not making the squad is shocking. Even Mason Mount, as much as he's been struggling as well for Chelsea, him making that on the plane, you know, no, like other struggling England players, notably again
Yeah,
like Harry Maguire, Eric
yeah.
Dyer, those names always come up in conversation. So yeah, no, there were definitely more players that were in form, even Tammy Abraham of Roma. So yeah, sucks to
Yeah.
not see those guys make the squad. And no, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that I think the U.S. will actually have a quite decent of a tournament.
Okay. I like that. Couple quick follow-up questions for you guys. First, let's go back to England. I definitely agree with you guys. England should see themselves as favorites, but in any other group, I think it wouldn't be as bad. Except obviously they're facing the U.S. There's history there. Wales, who obviously very neighboring countries. So if they're in a group with, let's say, I'm just thinking Group D, if they change places with France, and it's Tunisia, Denmark, Australia. Those games are, where these countries, I guess, history-wise, don't have as much. Then it's more straightforward. But given the fact that that is the case, England might find it a little bit more difficult, just based off of what is surrounding those games. So I think for their sake, I think it's more important as well. I think they do face off against Iran at the first game, and so that should be, hey, go in straight, and get a win, convincing win, and just really set a tone for that group. Second thing was, and you mentioned it, Gio. Wales have named players, but it feels like Gareth Bale's is uh, getting on with age, and it feels like, I'm not sure if you guys agree, Wales have always overperformed on based on their group of players, and like you said, Gio, it might be this year where they might not have that luck with them, and I do think the U.S. has the quality to finish second. It's going to be tight for them, but on the flip side, what do you guys think? I guess, Jill, what do you think? Because I feel like they're very much like Canada, where, well, they have, I think, more expectation than Canada because this is Canada's first World Cup for, I think, is it 30 years? Whereas the U.S. have been internationally challenging up there. What if the U.S. doesn't make it out of the group? Is that a big disappointment, Jill? Or do you think it's, hey, this is a young group of players. There's going to be time for them to evolve. Um, what are your thoughts?
I think based on the group and where they're in, obviously facing Iran and Wales and England, I think it will be a disappointment because there are
Mm,
points opportunities on the board, right? You you're thinking, we should make it out this group with second with at least 7 points. You want to fight for the draw with England. That's what you're going to go out there and do and try and do. And I think that game in particular, we're going to see a more counter attack type play from the U.S., which I think they're very capable of. But yeah, no, versus Iran, versus Wales, who I think are quite agey at this point. Yeah, no, they should expect 7 points. I think that's what their target is at. And if they don't achieve that and fail to make it out of the group, I think it will be a failure for them this tournament. As they've made it out the group stage, even squeezed out the group stage of past World Cups. So yeah, not making out of the group stage, I think would be considered a failure for them.
okay, same question for you, Mac.
Uh, if they don't make it out of the group stage, Greg Berhalter, who's the coach for the USA squad, he's getting the axe right away, 100%. He's not going to be able to
Ooh.
make it out of the World Cup because if you look at qualification, USA finished third, right, which is the last spot available for CONCACAF to have automatic qualification, and they did not perform well. They were a very negative team on the ball. Didn't really be able to create many opportunities. They had a lot of possession for a lot of games, but very, very slow in terms of creating opportunities. And arguably, they have the best kind of, I guess, names on the team sheet, the best talent, best quality that are playing across Europe in a lot of ways, even better than Mexico and Canada, who both finished above them. So this team should be expecting a lot from themselves, but in qualification, they're not been in good run of form. So I think that's the difference between Wales and the USA squad, in my opinion, is just the team camaraderie, the togetherness, the amount of time that they've played together. Because a lot of those Wales team members of the Wales team have played with each other for 6-7 years, have been in multiple cycles of tournaments together. Whereas this USA squad is littered with young players without much experience, as well as in the recent performance, at least playing together, haven't played that well. So for me, it is a little bit of a toss up between the two of them, and that first game is going to be absolutely fascinating.
Oh yeah.
So because that's really where it starts off. That kicks off right away for them. Where if either you in such a short tournament, you just don't want to lose your first game. Even if you come up with a tie, you say, you know what, there's a path here for us to be able to get through. So if either team wins, that's going to be huge, and either team loses, that's going to set them back right away, and they have to turn around and still have to end up facing the favorite in the group later on. So it'll be interesting how they come out and perform. A key player for them, for me, that should be very interesting to be able to watch is actually Tyler Adams from Leeds, because for me, that's the weakest part of the midfield. On the defensive side on the ball, they have good attackers with either like Pulisic, Giovanni Reina, even Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams' teammates at Leeds. If he's playing very, very well at the base of the midfield, pressing the ball well, be able to help cycle possession, I think they'll have a better shot. And that's definitely a player I'll keep my eye on. But it'll be interesting to see how they work out, especially again, like I said, on this first game.
Yeah, and man, a lot of riding in that first game, and definitely we'll be watching that. So very excited for that. On that note, we're going to take a quick break here, guys, and then we'll be back with Group C and D. So stay with us.